The spotlights were blinding as I reached for my award. Just as my fingers touched the golden trophy, my fiancé stepped forward and grabbed the microphone. "I have an announcement," he said, grinning straight at the camera. "I'm in love." "But not with my fiancé." Gasps rippled through the audience. I stood there frozen. The trophy suspended between us, as he pulled another woman onto the stage. "This is my true love," he declared. I didn't flinch, I didn't even blink. My smile stayed perfectly in place. He thought he was humiliating me on national television. What he didn't know was that I had already calculated how many millions my father would pull from his crumbling company. Let him enjoy his moment, I would take his career. The Golden Laurel Awards ceremony carried on around me like a dream I wasn't part of. Camera flashes lit up every angle, catching every second of my supposed disgrace. I should have seen it coming. The way Ryan had been distant for months, the late-night meetings, the strange perfume lingering on his shirts, but I had been too focused on the film that just won me Best Director to notice my fiancé planning his betrayal. Standing beside him was Isabel Wong, my lead actress. Blushing like she had rehearsed it, her fingers were already laced with Ryan's, their matching luxury watches catching the light. Convenient. Considering she had just signed on for my next 3 films. "Arya, would you like to say something?" The host extended the microphone toward me, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Phones were raised, the crowd was holding its breath, waiting for me to crumble. I took the microphone, smiled directly at the camera, and said, "Congratulations to you both. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a celebration to attend." I took my trophy from Ryan's stunned hands and walked off stage. My heels clicking with purpose. In the wings, my assistant Vivian rushed to meet me, her face tight with fury. "I'll ruin him," she muttered, already typing rapidly on her phone. "No," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Not yet." My phone buzzed. I answered right away. "Father," I said, "I saw everything." His smooth voice replied, "Your mother is making calls already. How do you want to handle this?" No sympathy, no comfort. Just strategy. That was how my father, the CEO of Chin Investments, operated. Emotions were for behind closed doors. "Let me think," I replied. Around me, the hallway was crowded with people pretending not to listen. "Meet me at home in an hour," I said, and hung up. "Vivian, get me everything on Isabel Wong's contract, and call Hannah. I need to speak with my sister right now." "It's already done," Vivian said, handing me a tablet. "Also, 3 sponsors called. They're sticking with you, not the studio." My smile tightened. Ryan wasn't just my fiancé, he was the creative director of Wei Productions, a studio teetering on the edge of collapse, kept alive by my father's investments and the success of my films. Our relationship had been built on love, or so I believed, and business. The Chinwei merger had been the industry's favorite rumor for years. Now, it would be a headline for a very different reason. When I arrived at our penthouse, the lights were dim. I could hear my mother's voice from the study. Low and clipped on the phone, the war room was already in session. "Arya," my father called, stepping out of his office. He was still in his tuxedo from the ceremony, but his bow tie was undone. The only hint of his anger was a small muscle twitching in his jaw. "We've been reviewing the contracts," he said, guiding me into the study. My mother hung up the phone, her face cold. "That was Margaret from the board," she said. "They've unanimously agreed to withdraw all funding from Wei Productions. It will be announced tomorrow." "No," I said, sitting down. "Not yet." My parents exchanged a look. "Ryan thinks he's won," I continued. "He believes he can humiliate me on live television and still keep my work, my talent, and your money. I want him to feel safe, I want him to relax. And then we take it all away." My father nodded slowly, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "You've always had the sharpest mind in the room." "What about the press?" my mother asked. "They're waiting for a statement." "Let them wait," I said. "Silence breeds speculation, and speculation drives curiosity." I glanced at my phone, overflowing with alerts. "Besides, I need to speak with Hannah first." As if on cue, my sister burst through the door, still in pajamas, clutching her laptop. "Tell me we're burning his studio to the ground," she said, collapsing beside me. Hannah was the quiet genius of our family, the author behind the best-selling series Phoenix Rising, which Ryan's studio had auctioned. The first film, directed by me, had just swept the awards. Even better, I said, you never signed over the rights to Phoenix Rising, did you? Hannah's eyes widened. We were waiting until after the wedding. The paperwork is ready but never finalized. Perfect, I said, turning to my parents. Here's what we're going to do. The doorbell interrupted our plans. On the security screen, Ryan's parents stood in the lobby, dressed in evening clothes, looking anxious. Beside them was Ryan. Face like stone. How unexpected, my mother murmured. Let them in, I said. This should be interesting. As the Wei family entered our home, the difference between us couldn't have been clearer. My parents stood tall, composed. Ryan's family looked like they wished they could disappear, except for Ryan himself, who had the nerve to look irritated, as if we had ruined his night. Arya, his mother began, her voice shaking. We had no idea Ryan would do such a thing. Please understand. This does not reflect our family's values, does it? My mother's voice was cold enough to freeze fire. Your son just humiliated my daughter in front of the entire industry, at the height of her career. So tell me, what are your family's values exactly? Mr. Wei stepped forward, addressing my father directly. James, please. We've been friends for over 20 years. Let's not allow the younger generation's drama to ruin a strong business relationship. My father's face didn't change. Is that why you're here? For business? Of course they are, I said, meeting Ryan's eyes for the first time that evening. Because without the Chin family's investment, Wei Productions is just a name on the door of an empty building. Ryan finally spoke. Do not be dramatic, Arya. This is not about business, Isabel and I. Save it, I cut in, my voice calm but firm. You've said enough for one evening. I smoothed down my gown and stood tall. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to change. It has been a long night, and tomorrow will be even longer. As my family escorted them out, I caught Ryan's parting glance. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes, breaking through that familiar arrogance. He was starting to realize, this wasn't just the end of an engagement. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The morning after the Golden Laurel Awards, I woke up to my phone vibrating violently on the nightstand. There were 47 missed calls, over 300 messages, and a swarm of trending hashtags. Some were flattering, like #Arya deserves better, others were less kind, like #producer showdown. I ignored them all and ordered coffee. Vivian arrived just as I was scrolling through headlines. She dropped a thick folder onto the coffee table. You're surprisingly calm for someone whose personal disaster is now the top entertainment story in the world, she said. What's this? I asked. Everything you asked for, she replied. Isabel Wong's contracts, financial records from Wei Productions, and, she added, pausing for effect, proof that Ryan and Isabel have been working together behind your back for at least 6 months. I raised an eyebrow. 6 months. We've been engaged for 2 years. There's more, Vivian said. Tapping the folder again, the Phoenix Rising project that Ryan just announced. With Isabel as the lead, he's been funneling pre-production funds into a separate account. According to my source, he plans to leave Wei Productions after this film and take your sister's intellectual property with him. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. This was not just personal betrayal, it was corporate theft. Does Hannah know? I asked. No, but she called this morning. She's furious. Ryan's team is pressuring her to sign over the final rights today, probably trying to act fast before the fallout from last night spreads further. I stood up, a surge of clarity rushing through me. Call Hannah, tell her to stall, but don't refuse outright, and get my father's legal team on standby for a noon meeting. By 11 a.m., my apartment had become a makeshift war room. My father arrived with 2 lawyers and our family's financial advisor. My mother came armed with her tablet. Already tapping into her web of social contacts and media allies, Hannah showed up last, dark circles under her eyes, her expression stormy. Tell me you're going to destroy him, she said flatly. Better, I replied, echoing the words from last night. We're going to build something he can't touch. My father spread a stack of financial documents across the dining table. Wei Productions has been operating at a loss for the past 3 quarters. Ryan has been hiding this from both the board and his parents. Our investment is the only thing keeping them from collapsing. And if we pull out, I asked, they'll go bankrupt in 60 days, my father said evenly, but we have to move carefully. If the timing looks too reactive, it might damage your image. I've already spoken to several industry contacts, my mother added. The consensus is sympathy. No one appreciates a public betrayal, especially one that hijacks an award ceremony. Hannah opened her laptop. What about my books? I won't sign Phoenix Rising over to that snake. But I've invested 2 years in adapting the manuscript. I smiled for the first time since the awards. That's our pivot. I turned to my father. How quickly can we register a new production company with proper documentation? 48 hours, he replied, and we can use the funds withdrawn from Wei Productions. That will be more than enough to support a mid-size studio. Then here's the plan, I said, pulling a blank sheet of paper toward me. We'll launch Phoenix Films. Hannah will delay signing the rights transfer and instead grant exclusive adaptation rights to our new company. We will gradually withdraw our investment from Wei Productions over the next 30 days. Not so fast that it looks like revenge, but fast enough to put pressure on them. What about the cast and crew already attached to Phoenix Rising? Hannah asked. We offer them better contracts. Most of the talent is loyal to me, not Ryan. He might have taken my fiancé, but I will take his entire production. My mother smiled. Sharp, thin, and terrifying, the kind of smile that had silenced boardrooms for decades. And Ryan's parents, she asked. My friendship with Robert Wei's wife goes back years. My father said, frowning. Robert called this morning. He wants us to reconsider pulling our funding. He implied Ryan was pressured into making that announcement last night. By whom? I asked, incredulous. He hinted that Isabel might have manipulated him, that it was a momentary lapse in judgment. I laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound, a momentary lapse that took planning, coordination with the host, and 6 months of secret meetings. Exactly, my father said. Robert may be a decent businessman, but he's a terrible liar. The meeting stretched for hours, every step was planned, every outcome calculated. By evening, Phoenix Films had a legal framework. With me as CEO and creative director, Hannah's agent had begun drafting new contracts. My father's financial team started quietly untangling our capital from Wei Productions. My phone buzzed again. Ryan's name lit up the screen. After 20 ignored calls, he was still trying. You should answer it, Vivian urged. Find out what he wants. I accepted the call and put it on speaker so everyone in the room could hear. Arya, Ryan's voice sounded tight, strained. We need to talk. I kept my tone cool. I believe you said everything you needed to last night. That was, look, things got out of hand, but this is affecting business. Your father is pulling out his investments without a word. The Phoenix Rising contracts still need to be finalized. Can we meet and talk? Of course, I said calmly. My lawyers will reach out to yours tomorrow. Lawyers? Ryan sounded caught off guard. Arya, this does not have to be so formal. I disagree, I replied firmly. From now on, all communication between us will go through the appropriate business channels. There was a pause, then he asked, is this about Isabel? I know the timing was terrible, but this is about the company. No, Ryan, you made your decisions, now I am making mine. When the call ended, the room was quiet. Then Hannah spoke up, her voice filled with admiration. That, she said, was masterful. 3 days later, Phoenix Films was officially registered. The press release was short and direct. Award-winning director Arya Chin launches new production company with exclusive rights to adapt the best-selling Phoenix series by H.C. Phoenix. The industry responded immediately. Talent agents flooded our lines, eager to get their clients involved. Investors reached out, curious about new opportunities. Online, the news exploded. Speculation buzzed about what this meant for Wei Productions. That evening, Ryan called again, his voice now frantic. What are you doing? You cannot just take Phoenix Rising. I have not taken anything, I answered, steady as ever. Hannah never completed the rights transfer to Wei Productions. She is free to sign with any studio she prefers. He sounded stunned. She would not have done this without your influence. This is personal sabotage. No, Ryan, this is business. I paused so he could fully absorb the meaning. You chose the actress. I chose the story. Let's see which choice matters more. As I ended the call, the apartment buzzer rang. The security desk announced that director Marcus Lee was downstairs, requesting to see me. Marcus had once been my mentor, and now he was Way Productions' most respected director. Send him up, I said. When Marcus entered, his expression was kind, but his eyes held a sharp, professional gleam. I heard about Phoenix Films, he said. Bold move, especially under the circumstances. Thank you, I replied. Can I offer you something to drink? He waved it off. No, thank you. I will be direct. I currently have 3 projects in development at Way. As of this morning, all 3 are suddenly under review. I nodded. My father's withdrawal of funding is already making waves. Exactly, he said. Which brings me to this question. Does Phoenix Films need experienced directors? For the first time that day, I smiled with genuine warmth. As a matter of fact, we do. He extended his hand. Then consider this my official expression of interest. We sat down to discuss potential projects, and as we talked, a news alert popped up on my phone. Breaking. Way Productions announces financial restructuring amid sudden investment withdrawals. Phase 1 was complete. Now it was time for Phase 2. The first month at Phoenix Films passed in a blur of paperwork, planning, and press. We secured office space in the sleek Horizon Tower, 3 floors above Way Productions headquarters. An intentional choice. I assembled a dream team. Marcus Lee came on board as creative director, Hannah took the lead as head writer, and Vivian stepped into the role of chief operating officer. Veterans from across the industry, tired of being undervalued, gravitated to us. They were drawn by our commitment to creative freedom and fair compensation. Production on Phoenix Rising was set to begin in just 2 weeks. We had cast Daniel Xiao in the male lead. His quiet intensity was perfect for the role. As for the female lead, I was taking my time, not for lack of talent. Every actress in the city wanted the part Isabel had lost, but because I was being selective, I was in my office reviewing audition tapes when Vivian burst in, her face unusually pale. We have a situation, she said, placing her tablet in front of me. The screen showed a tab open to an entertainment news site. The headline sent a chill through my body. Exclusive, Arya Chin's explicit photos leaked online. What photos? I asked, though deep down, I already knew. They are fake, Vivian confirmed. But very realistic, high-quality deepfakes. They have been spreading through gossip forums all morning. My phone started ringing. It was my father. I picked up immediately. I have seen them, I said before he could speak. They are not real, I know, he replied. His voice was calm, but beneath it, I heard tightly held rage. Our legal team is preparing cease and desist letters for every platform that has posted them. Your mother is calling in favors with her media contacts. What about Phoenix Films? I asked. Could this ruin everything we have worked for? Only if you let it, he said firmly. Your key investors are solid. I have already spoken to the 3 largest. They are standing by you. After the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the screen. The article did not show the images directly, but it described them in lurid detail. The comments were already piling up. Speculation, mockery, and vulgar jokes. Vivian cleared her throat. The team is waiting in the conference room. They want to know how you want to respond. I stood, straightening my jacket. Then let us not keep them waiting. As I walked into the conference room, 8 heads turned toward me. Their expressions ranged from supportive to uneasy. Marcus spoke first. We are with you, Arya. Whatever you decide, we back you. I took a breath. We have 2 options. We can ignore it, act as if it is not worth our attention. Or we can go on the offensive. Ignore it, suggested our PR director. Responding gives it credibility. Fight back, countered Hannah. Everyone knows who did this. No one said Ryan or Isabel's name. They did not have to. The implication hung heavy in the air. It had been 6 weeks since the awards night disaster. Way Productions was in chaos. Emergency board meetings, layoffs, cancelled projects. Ryan's public image was collapsing as tabloids chronicled his desperate efforts to save both his relationship and his company. We fight, I said finally, but smartly. Vivian, get our cybersecurity team on this. I want a trace of where these files originated. Legal, prepare for criminal charges as soon as we have evidence. The PR team was already drafting a response. Firm, composed, and clear, the statement would acknowledge that the images circulating online were fabricated, denounce the malicious attempt to tarnish my reputation, and confirm that a criminal investigation was underway. Everyone left the room with a renewed sense of purpose. Just as the last person walked out, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. Miss Chin. The voice on the other end was low and professional. This is Detective Wilson from the Digital Crimes Unit. We have received reports about doctored images being spread online. Would you be willing to file an official report? I almost laughed at the timing. Yes, Detective, in fact, I was just about to contact you. By that evening, the public narrative had shifted. The hashtag #StandWithAura was trending worldwide. Industry leaders posted statements condemning the attack. Digital forensic experts weighed in, publicly dissecting the images and pointing out obvious signs of tampering. Then came the breakthrough we had been waiting for. Vivian burst into my office, breathless. We found the source. The original upload came from an IP address registered to Isabel Wong's home network. I closed my eyes for a moment, silently processing what she said. A part of me had hoped, naively, that Ryan had not stooped this low, that there was still some line he would not cross. Do the police know? I asked. They're getting a warrant now. The arrest came the next morning. It was not Isabel herself but her assistant, caught red-handed trying to get rid of the computer used to create and distribute the images. By the afternoon, the assistant had already confessed and implicated Isabel in exchange for leniency. I was in a casting session when Ryan called. For once, I picked up. Arya, you have to stop this, he began urgently. His voice was tight with panic. Isabel is being set up. This will ruin her career. That is unfortunate, I said calmly. Maybe she should have thought about the consequences before trying to ruin mine. You do not understand. She is falling apart. The police took her devices. The media is camped outside her home. I understand completely, I replied. Actions have consequences. Something you and Isabel seem to have forgotten. He lowered his voice, pleading, what will it take to make this go away? Make what go away? I asked coldly. The criminal investigation for cyber harassment and defamation. That is out of my hands. You are not innocent in this, he hissed. Your family has influence. You could bury this if you wanted to, just like you tried to bury me, I said, my voice sharpening. You replaced me professionally, humiliated me in public, and when that was not enough, tried to destroy me completely. He went silent. Goodbye, Ryan. Later that day, We Productions held an emergency board meeting. Reports described chaos, raised voices, legal threats, and finally, a decisive vote of no confidence. By the evening, it was official. Ryan Wei was removed as creative director and reassigned to a consulting role, stripped of any creative authority. We Productions released a formal statement, distancing themselves from both Ryan and Isabel. They expressed shock at the allegations and announced an internal restructuring of the company. That night, in my penthouse, I sat with my family for the first time in weeks. The air felt lighter. The fight was not over. But for the first time, I allowed myself a moment of vindication. They are finished, Hannah said, raising her glass. We Productions will not survive this. They might. My father said thoughtfully, if a larger studio steps in, several are circling already. My mother smiled with the quiet confidence of someone used to winning. And guess who those studios are calling for due diligence on Wei's past projects? I laughed, shaking my head. You are all terrifying. We are the Chen family. My father replied simply, we protect our own. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking, actress Isabel Wong released on bail, facing multiple felony charges. Another notification popped up a moment later. We Productions stock hits record low amid leadership fallout. Hannah raised an eyebrow. Karma moves fast these days. I set my phone down, suddenly tired. This is no longer just about revenge. We have built something real with Phoenix Films. Something worth protecting. My father nodded, satisfied. Now you are thinking like a CEO. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, Daniel Xiao was waiting in the reception area. Daniel. We do not have a meeting today. He looked uncharacteristically uneasy. I was hoping we could speak privately about everything that has been happening. I led him to my office. Curious, I have known Isabel for years, he began once we were seated. We started out in the business together. My guard went up instantly. If you are here to defend her, the opposite, he interrupted gently. I know what she is capable of. 3 years ago, she pulled a similar stunt with another actress. Different tools, same goal. I studied his expression. Why are you telling me this? Because I respect what you are building, and because you deserve to know. He hesitated, then added, Ryan called me last night. He offered to double my Phoenix contract if I broke it and went back to WE. Daniel gave a faint smile. I told him I do not work with people who value sabotage over storytelling. As he left, I sat back, absorbing the new information. Ryan was desperate. Trying to lure away our talent, it was expected, but hearing that he had already approached Daniel made me wonder. Who else had he contacted? Before I could dwell further, Vivian came in, practically glowing. You will not believe who just requested a meeting with you, she said. Who? Robert and Miranda Way. Ryan's parents, the heads of the Way family. They sat across from me in our glass-walled conference room. Robert looked older than I remembered, his tailored suit slightly wrinkled, his posture less certain. Miranda still carried herself with elegance, but the tension in her expression gave her away. Thank you for seeing us, Arya, Robert began, his voice careful. We appreciate you making time under the circumstances. I nodded, maintaining a neutral tone. What can I help you with? Miranda leaned in. We want to talk about the future of WE Productions. I am afraid you are speaking to the wrong person, I said. I have no ties to your company, but your family does. Robert replied quickly, or did. James Chen's withdrawal has left us in an impossible situation. The board has decided our best option is acquisition by a larger studio. Here is the fully polished version of your text in smooth, natural English. It adds subtle transitions and clarifies relationships while keeping your original meaning intact, using simple and accessible language. I raised an eyebrow. And you are telling me this because, Miranda took a breath. Because 3 major studios have already approached us. Summit Entertainment, Global Pictures, and Horizon Films. All 3 want your input before moving forward. I could not help but smile slightly. The industry's due diligence process was thorough. No one wanted to acquire a company without first understanding why its major backer had suddenly pulled out. What about Ryan? I asked. Does he know you are here? The Weiss exchanged uneasy glances. Ryan has been removed from all decision-making roles, Robert admitted. His actions did irreversible damage to our company's reputation. And Isabel, Miranda's expression turned cold. Miss Wong is no longer associated with WE Productions in any way. I paused, choosing my words carefully. Despite everything that had happened, these were people who once felt like family. Their son had betrayed me. Yes, but I could still see the pain in their eyes as they watched their legacy begin to crumble. I will not interfere with the acquisition talks, I said at last. WE Productions has valuable assets and a talented team. They deserve stability. But I will not support any studio that keeps Ryan in a leadership position. Relief spread across Robert's face. Thank you, Arya. That is more than we expected. However, I said, leaning forward, I do have a counter-proposal. I opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. They looked down, puzzled. What is this? Robert asked. A merger proposal. I explained. Phoenix Films would acquire controlling interest in WE Productions, key staff would be retained, and all current projects would be completed. Your family would keep a minority stake and serve in advisory roles. Miranda's eyes widened. You want to buy us? I want to preserve what matters and let go of what does not, I said simply. WE Productions has 30 years of industry relationships and an impressive catalogue. Letting that disappear would be a waste. But why would you? Robert started, then trailed off as understanding dawned. This is not about revenge anymore, is it? It never was, I said. This has always been about building something that lasts. As the Weiss left to review the proposal with their board, Vivian walked in wearing a knowing smile. That went better than expected, she said. Do you think they will accept? They do not have much of a choice, I replied, gathering my notes. The 3 studios interested in buying them are all tied to my father's business network. If the Weiss turn us down, those offers will quietly vanish. Vivian shook her head, half in disbelief. Remind me never to cross your family. Speaking of family, I said, glancing at my watch, I have dinner with mine tonight. The premiere is tomorrow, and Hannah is feeling nervous. The Phoenix Rising premiere was scheduled exactly 1 year after the infamous Golden Laurel Awards ceremony. The symmetry was not lost on the entertainment press, who called it Arya Chen's triumphant return. I walked the red carpet in a silver gown that shimmered under every flash. My family stood at my side, along with the film's stars. Daniel Xiao had proven to be more than a talented actor. He had become a loyal ally, passionately defending the film from its earliest skeptics. Inside the theater, I took my seat between Hannah and my father as the lights dimmed. The film we had fought to complete, against opposition, scandal, and doubt, began to unfold. The audience reacted just as we had hoped. There was laughter in the right places, gasps during the action, and a profound stillness during the emotional final scene. When the credits rolled, the applause built into a 5-minute standing ovation. At the after-party, producers and celebrities lined up to offer their congratulations. Critics were already posting glowing early reviews online. Phoenix Rising was more than a personal victory. It was both a commercial and artistic success. I was speaking with a studio executive when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find Ryan, visibly uncomfortable in a suit that did not quite fit. Arya, he said. Can we talk somewhere private? Against my better judgment, I followed him to a quiet corner of the rooftop venue. Congratulations, he said. The film is incredible. Thank you, I answered, keeping my tone neutral. My parents told me about your proposal. The merger between Phoenix and Wei, he went on. And I just wanted to say, I finally understand what I lost. He tried to smile, but it faltered, not just personally, but professionally too. You were always the talent. I was just the guy lucky enough to stand beside you. I studied him, searching for some trace of manipulation, but all I saw was exhaustion, maybe even regret. Where is Isabel? I asked. He looked away. Gone. Her legal troubles made everything more complicated. I nodded, unsurprised. So, what is it you want from me, Ryan? Forgiveness, a second chance? No, he replied, surprising me. I know I don't deserve either. I just wanted you to know that I will not stand in your way. I have already signed over my voting shares to my parents. Whatever happens to Wei Productions, I will not be involved. As he turned and walked away, I felt something unexpected. No triumph, no vindication, just a quiet sense of closure. I had not just survived his betrayal. I had built something stronger from its ashes. My father appeared beside me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Was that Ryan? Yes, I said. He surrendered his shares. The merger should move forward without any obstacles. He nodded approvingly. You have done well, Arya. Better than I could have imagined. I learned from the best, I replied, tapping my glass lightly against his. Later that night, as the party wound down, I found myself standing alone on the rooftop balcony, gazing out over the city lights. Daniel joined me. His presence a familiar comfort after everything we had built together. Quite a year, he said quietly. Indeed. So what is next? For Phoenix Films, for you? I turned to him and smiled. For the first time in a long while, my path felt clear. Expansion, I said. We are announcing a 3-picture deal next week, international co-productions the week after that. And personally, he asked, his voice softer now. I looked at him fully, truly seeing him. That part, I said, is still being written. The next morning, the industry headlines led with 2 announcements. Phoenix Rising breaks opening weekend records and Wei Phoenix merger creates new entertainment powerhouse. As I scrolled through the articles, a new notification appeared on my phone. The Golden Laurel Award nominations had just been announced. Phoenix Films had received 15 nods, including Best Director. I closed my laptop with a soft laugh. Memories of the past year swirling in my mind, especially that moment when I stood frozen on stage, watching my world unravel. Some endings, I have come to learn, are simply beginnings in disguise. That evening, we gathered at my parents' home for a celebratory dinner. My mother had prepared all my favorite dishes, and Hannah had brought advanced copies of her next novel. As we lifted our glasses for a toast, my father looked at me with unmistakable pride in his eyes. "To Phoenix Films," he said warmly, "and to my daughter, who turned betrayal into triumph, and to the lessons learned," I added, smiling, "the most important one being, never invest in someone who cannot keep their promises." "I didn't pull my investment to punish him," my father replied gently. "I did it because I only invest in people who honor their word, like you." Laughter and conversation filled the room, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. I felt something close to peace. The chapter that began with public humiliation had closed with creation and victory. I had not only survived Ryan's betrayal, I had used it as the cornerstone of something far greater. Those who once rejected me were now eager to be part of my journey. 1 year after Phoenix Rising premiered, Phoenix Way Studios had become a powerhouse in the entertainment world. Our merger had outperformed every financial prediction. Our production calendar was booked solid for the next 3 years. And our reputation for both commercial success and creative integrity attracted top-tier talent from every corner of the industry. I no longer thought about Ryan every day. The sting of betrayal had faded into an occasional memory, a cautionary tale rather than a fresh wound. Rumor had it he moved abroad after a failed attempt to start a new company in Europe. Isabel had completed her community service for cybercrimes and returned to acting quietly, appearing only in minor roles in low-budget projects. The Golden Laurel for Best Director now sat proudly on my office shelf, beside 3 others, tangible proof that success truly is the best revenge. Yet lately, I had begun to wonder, was there more to life than success and revenge? "Miss Chin, your 200 is here." My assistant's voice came through the intercom. I glanced at my calendar, puzzled. "I don't have a 200. The door opened, and in walked my father, looking impeccable in a perfectly tailored suit. "Surprise meeting," he said with a small smile as he took the seat across from me. "I thought we should discuss the Meridian Group acquisition privately." He studied me closely. "The board meeting is tomorrow, and you haven't shared your position." Meridian Group was the largest independent studio in Asia. Acquiring it would triple our production output and expand our reach significantly. On paper, it was a logical next step for Phoenix Way's growth. "I'm still reviewing the details," I replied. Trying to sound neutral, my father raised an eyebrow. "The numbers are strong. This isn't about the math, is it?" "No," I admitted, "it's about timing. We've grown so fast already, maybe we should pause, take a breath before expanding again." He leaned forward slightly. "That doesn't sound like the Arya Chin I know. The woman who built an empire from ashes wouldn't hesitate now." I sighed and turned my chair toward the windows. The city stretched out beneath us, full of dreams, ambition, and stories waiting to be told. "That's just it," I said quietly. "I built this company to save my career and repair my reputation, but now I keep asking myself, what am I building it for?" There was a long pause, then my father's voice softened. "I wondered when we'd have this conversation." "What conversation?" "The one about purpose," he said simply. "Your mother and I started Chin Investments because we had to. We were immigrants with nothing but a dream and a plan, but once we succeeded, we had to ask ourselves what it was all for." "And did you find an answer?" He smiled. "We found you and Hannah. Our purpose became our family. Watching you both chase your own dreams became our greatest pride." I looked back at my desk and reached out to touch the golden laurel statue. "But I don't have a family." "Purpose doesn't have to mean family," he said gently. "It can mean legacy, change, impact. The real question isn't whether to acquire Meridian Group, it's why." After he left, I sat alone in my office, turning his words over in my mind. Why, indeed, what was I really building? The answer found me later that night during a routine project review. A small independent film proposal caught my eye. It told the story of a young immigrant woman trying to find her place in a harsh and unforgiving industry. "Who's directing this?" I asked Vivian. "Mia Collins," she replied. "It's her first time as a director. She's been a cinematographer up until now. The script is strong. But the project lost its funding." "How much do they need?" $5 million. "But it's high risk, low return. It doesn't fit our usual profile." Still, something about the story stayed with me. "Let's fund it," I said. "Full amount, minimal interference." Vivian blinked. "Are you sure?" the board might. It will come from my discretionary fund, I said firmly. Sometimes, we need to invest in potential, not just profits. Later that night, I called Daniel. Over the past year, our professional relationship had grown into something more personal. Our dinners often stretched long past business hours. Our phone calls had become more frequent and less about schedules. I think I'm having an existential crisis, I told him without warning. He laughed, the sound warm through the phone. Should I bring wine or philosophy books? An hour later, we sat on my balcony, surrounded by the soft glow of the city lights. I've been thinking about legacy, I said. Not just growing the company, but creating something that matters. Daniel nodded, his tone reflective. From revenge to empire to meaning, that's a natural evolution, is it? I asked. Sometimes I wonder if I've just been running, first away from shame, then toward approval. Maybe, he said. But that doesn't take away from what you've accomplished. He reached for my hand. His touch was steady and familiar. What would meaningful look like to you? He asked. The question stayed with me for days. I thought about it in meetings, on film sets, during morning runs. What would meaningful really look like? I found the answer during a mentoring session with a group of film students. One young woman asked how I had navigated the industry as an outsider, as I shared my story, edited to leave out the messier parts. I saw the same fire in her eyes that once burned in mine. That afternoon, I called an emergency meeting with my executive team. When everyone had gathered, I stood and said clearly, I want to launch a foundation. I named it the Phoenix Initiative, a program designed to support women and minority filmmakers by providing funding, mentorship, and distribution opportunities. Vivian, always the practical one, asked, what kind of budget are we talking? 20 million a year to start, I replied. We'll scale it based on its impact. That is a significant investment, our CFO remarked cautiously. It is necessary. I answered, without hesitation, and this is only the beginning. Over the next month, we carefully built the framework. The Phoenix Initiative would operate independently from our main commercial ventures. With a dedicated team and mission, it would serve as a parallel path. One focused on uplifting voices that rarely get heard in this industry. When we unveiled the initiative at the annual industry gala, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Applications poured in. Media outlets covered it enthusiastically. Even our more profit-driven investors saw the potential for long-term brand value. But the most touching reaction came from Hannah. She walked into my office the day after the announcement, uninvited but welcome. I want to write a series about this, she said, sinking into a chair, a fictional one. About women reshaping the entertainment world. Fictional? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She smiled knowingly. With a main character suspiciously like my older sister. No one would believe it, I said with a laugh. A betrayed fiancée who rebuilds her career by outmaneuvering her ex. Too dramatic. Truth is stranger than fiction, she replied with a shrug. And the real story is not about betrayal or revenge. It is about what you're doing now. Creating opportunity, not just taking it. Her words stayed with me as I prepared for the upcoming acquisition meeting with the Meridian Group. When I stood before the board, my pitch had changed. This acquisition is not only about growth, I said, it is about access. Meridian's presence in Asia opens doors to talent we rarely see represented in Western markets. This is our chance to broaden the kind of stories we tell. The board voted unanimously in favor. That evening, we celebrated with a quiet gathering at my parents' home. As we raised our glasses, my father turned to me. To Arya, he said, who proved that real success is not measured by what you take, but by what you create. My mother added gently, and by what you help others create. I looked around at the people who had stood by me through every scandal and triumph, the team that helped rebuild something meaningful from the ashes. And Daniel, whose calm support had become the quiet rhythm of my life. To second chapters, I said, lifting my glass, and to the stories still waiting to be told. Later, as the evening quieted, I found myself standing with Daniel on the balcony, watching the sunset bleed into warm gold and amber. You know, he said softly, most people stop at revenge, a few build empires, but almost no one takes it further. What is further? I asked. Building something that is not about you at all. he replied, turning toward me. That is rare. I am not there yet, I admitted. Part of me still enjoys knowing Ryan has to watch all of this from wherever he is hiding in Europe. Daniel laughed. You would not be human if you did not. But that is not what drives you anymore, and he was right. The woman who had once stood frozen on stage during her greatest humiliation was gone. I had been shaped not just by betrayal or success, but by a deeper sense of purpose. The empire I built was not only proof of survival, it was becoming a foundation for something much bigger than myself. Ryan had announced his mistress as his fiancée, and my father had cut off the funding, leaving him bankrupt. But that was never the real ending. The true resolution came not through his downfall or my rise, but through the realization that the best revenge is not just living well, it is building a future where others can thrive too. 5 years after that unforgettable Golden Laurel Awards night, I stood on that same stage once more. This time, I was not receiving an award, I was presenting the Lifetime Achievement Honor to a trailblazing female director who had mentored me early in my career. Looking out into the audience, I saw a different world. The front rows were filled with diverse, brilliant filmmakers, many of them alumni of the Phoenix Initiative. Their presence alone had shifted what once seemed like an unchangeable industry. Phoenix Way had grown beyond anything I had imagined. Since the Meridian Group acquisition, we had expanded into streaming, international co-productions, and even launched theme park attractions based on Hannah's novels. But the greatest impact came from what never showed up on a balance sheet. The careers launched, the voices amplified, the stories rescued from silence. Miss Chin. They need you backstage for the final rehearsal, a production assistant whispered, breaking me out of my thoughts. As I stepped behind the curtain, my phone vibrated with a message from Daniel. We had married 3 years earlier in a small, private ceremony at my parents' estate. His steadiness was the perfect complement to my ambition. Good luck tonight. Hannah and I are in the 3rd row. Mom and Dad just arrived. Another alert lit up my screen. Breaking. European studio Eurovision Films files for bankruptcy. Ryan Way faces investor lawsuit. I stared at the headline for a moment, then quietly dismissed it. There had been a time when news like that would have satisfied something in me, made me feel avenged, but now, it barely registered. Our paths had split so completely that his downfall no longer felt personal. The ceremony went off without a hitch. After presenting the award, I made my way to the reception. Weaving through a sea of familiar industry faces and eager new talents, in one corner, I spotted Isabel Wong. She looked older, quieter, holding a glass of champagne as she chatted with a junior executive. Our eyes met for a second. I gave a small nod, neither hostile nor warm. She returned the gesture with the same neutral grace before turning back to her conversation. Whatever had once burned between us, anger, resentment, rivalry, was gone. We were history now, no longer enemies. Just a cautionary tale, quite the full circle, said a voice beside me. I turned and smiled. It was Marcus Lee, now leading his own production arm within Phoenix Way. 5 years ago, everything had fallen apart. Now, we were the ones building what came next, ancient history, I said with a smile. Hoping to close the subject, not to the trades, Marcus replied, holding up his phone. They're running retrospectives on the night that changed Hollywood, according to this. You single-handedly shifted the industry's power dynamics. I let out a laugh. That sounds like a bit of an exaggeration. Is it though? He asked, his tone thoughtful. Look around, the entire landscape is different, and you were the spark. Later that night, as Daniel and I got ready for bed in our hotel suite, I felt unusually introspective. Did you see the news about Ryan? I asked, taking off my earrings. Daniel looked up from his book. I did. Does it bother you? I shook my head. Surprised by my own honesty. No, that's what struck me the most. I don't feel anything, not satisfaction, not pity, just acknowledgement. That is healing, he said softly, though I imagine future film students will spend decades analyzing your rivalry in their classes. I groaned. God, I hope not. Too late, he said, grinning as he held up his tablet. The screen displayed a university course titled Industry Disruption. The Phoenix Way. This is mortifying. This, he said gently, is legacy. The next morning, as we packed to return home, a message from Vivian came through, now the president of production at Phoenix Films. She had scheduled an urgent meeting for the following day. Attached to her email was a preliminary proposal for the company's 5-year strategic plan. I skimmed it during the flight. The vision impressed me. Phoenix Films would move away from traditional studio structures and focus on creator-led partnerships, educational initiatives, and new technology platforms designed to make filmmaking more accessible. It's bold, I thought, risky, but in the best way. You're smiling, Daniel said, looking up from his script. I was just thinking about how far we've come, from scrambling to survive, to reshaping an entire industry. When we got home, Hannah greeted us at the door. She had moved into our guest house temporarily while renovating her own place and had brought dinner along with exciting news. The network wants to fast-track my latest adaptation, she said, passing around pasta. They're calling it their flagship project for next year. That's incredible, I said. Who's directing? Hannah gave me a knowing smile. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. They offered it to MIA Collins. MIA Collins? I repeated, thinking back to the small independent film she had made years ago, the one I had quietly funded. That film had helped me rediscover my own creative purpose. Yes. The same MIA. She's done 3 features since then, all brilliant. She's perfect for this project, but she has one condition. What's that? She wants you as executive producer, not just in name, hands-on. I hesitated. Hannah, I am not sure I have the time. There is so much to manage. She leaned forward. That's exactly why you should do it. The company needs you to remember why you started it. This is what inspired Phoenix in the first place. When was the last time you actually created something? Not managed, not delegated, but created. She had a point. Lately, my role had become increasingly corporate, strategy, scaling, managing growth, but not storytelling, not art. I'll think about it, I promised. The next morning, I arrived early at Phoenix Films headquarters and took my time walking through the production floors before heading to my office. The energy in the building was electric. Editors cutting footage in darkened rooms, writers passionately debating storylines in glass-walled conference spaces, developers refining our latest digital platform for global content distribution. All of it, the noise, the creativity, the fire, had grown from that single moment of betrayal, from the night Ryan announced his mistress as his bride, from the moment my father pulled his funding and left Ryan's empire to crumble. What started as damage control had transformed into vision, then into purpose, and now, legacy. When I walked into my office, a small gift box sat on my desk. There was a note from my parents, for remembering the journey while creating the future. Inside was a delicate pendant in the shape of a phoenix, its wings spread wide in flight. I fastened it around my neck just as Vivian arrived, arms full of reports and presentation materials. Before we begin, I said, I've been thinking about Hannah's project. I want to executive produce it, personally. Vivian blinked in surprise, then smiled. Actually, that fits perfectly with what we are proposing, returning to a creator-led model, where executives stay actively involved in the creative process. Exactly, I said. We didn't build Phoenix to become just another corporate machine. We built it to change how stories are told, and who gets to tell them. As the meeting began, I felt a sense of clarity I had not felt in months. The 5-year plan was more than a roadmap for growth. It was a blueprint for evolution, a way to expand without losing the spirit that had made us different. That evening, I called MIA Collins personally to confirm my role as executive producer. Her excitement was immediate and sincere. Her vision for the adaptation was bold and carefully crafted. You know, she said as we wrapped up the call, your first investment in me changed everything. I've tried to pay that forward with every project since. That is the point, I told her, not just individual success, but a chain reaction of opportunity. Afterward, I joined Daniel in our rooftop garden, where the sunset washed the city in gold. I told him about my decision to return to hands-on production. I'm not surprised, he said, taking my hand. You have always been a creator at heart. The business side was just the bridge to something bigger. And what do you think that is? I asked, curious. He thought for a moment. At first, it was about control, then, influence. Now, I think it is about impact, creating something that outlasts you, that outlasts all of us. I leaned against his shoulder and looked out at the city, lights beginning to flicker on beneath the deepening sky. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Ryan hadn't betrayed me that night? If everything had gone the way we planned? Sometimes, Daniel admitted. But then I see everything that came from it, and I think maybe the universe knew exactly what it was doing. As night settled over the city, I stood quietly on the rooftop, looking back on the long road from that stage 5 years ago to this moment. What began in humiliation had become something extraordinary, a journey from loss to purpose, from vengeance to legacy. Ryan had once stood proudly, announcing his mistress as his bride in front of the world. My father responded by withdrawing his investment, leaving Ryan financially ruined. But in truth, this story was never just about their actions, it was about what those actions set into motion. Their betrayal had opened a door. From its ashes, we built a company that reshaped an industry, a foundation that launched hundreds of creative careers, and a life rooted in purpose instead of reaction. In the end, the betrayal turned out to be a gift, not because it destroyed Ryan, but because it forced me to discover the strength and vision to create something far greater than either of us had ever imagined. 10 years after the infamous Golden Laurel Awards, Phoenix Way had become a global powerhouse in entertainment. Our latest annual report showed record-breaking profits across film, streaming, and interactive media. The Phoenix Initiative had supported over 500 filmmakers across the world, many of whom were now shaping the industry's future. What began as a response to pain had become a cultural institution. 2 years ago, I stepped back from daily operations and transitioned into the role of chairperson. Vivian took over as CEO, which gave me the freedom to focus on personal creative projects. I spent more time mentoring young talent, producing passion-driven films, and occasionally stepping into the director's chair when a story truly moved me. Daniel and I welcomed our daughter, Lily, 3 years ago. Becoming a mother shifted my outlook in ways I never anticipated. It made me more selective with how I spent my time, but it also gave deeper meaning to everything I chose to do. Watching Lily explore the world each day reminded me of the immense power of storytelling, and the responsibility that comes with it. Miss Chin, my assistant's voice came through the intercom. You have a visitor, he says it's urgent, but he will not give his name. I frowned and glanced at my calendar. I do not have anything scheduled this afternoon. I know, she replied, but he insists it is about the Meridian Legacy project. Curious, I buzzed him in. The door opened, and standing there was a man older and thinner than I remembered, but still unmistakable. Robert Way, Ryan's father. Arya, he said, his voice rougher than before. Thank you for seeing me. Of course, I replied, gesturing to the visitor's chair. This is a surprise. He sank into the seat slowly. Taking a moment to look around my office, there was no hiding the admiration in his eyes. You have built something incredible, not just for yourself, but for all of us. What brings you here, Robert? I asked, keeping my tone measured. He reached into his coat and placed a slim folder on my desk. It is Miranda, he said quietly. She is sick, pancreatic cancer. The prognosis is not good. The news hit harder than I expected. For years, before everything fell apart, Miranda Way had been like a second mother to me. I am so sorry, I said sincerely. Is there anything I can do? She has been working on a memoir, he explained, tapping the folder. It covers the early days of We Productions. Before everything turned sour, she wants to preserve that history before it disappears. I opened the folder and found a book proposal along with several sample chapters. The title read, Before the Fall, The Golden Age of Independent Cinema. Why bring this to me? I asked, though I already had an idea. Because Phoenix Way owns the rights to all of it, he said. The archives, the production notes, the old contracts, everything. Miranda can write the book, but without access to those materials, it will never be complete. I studied Robert carefully. The past decade had changed him. The powerful studio executive I once knew was now weary, softened by age and experience. And where is Ryan in all this? I asked. Robert's face tightened. Back in the US, after the collapse of Eurovision, He tried his hand at directing commercials, now he teaches film at a community college in Oregon. I could not help the small smile that tugged at my lips. The irony was unmistakable. Does he know you are here? No, Robert admitted. Ryan and I have not spoken much since Miranda's diagnosis. He still blames me for not supporting him when the board removed him. The Robert the first once knew would have tried to justify his actions. But the man sitting in front of me just looked tired. I will need time to review the proposal, I said at last, and I will have to consult with our legal team. But I see no reason why we could not grant access for the sake of historical documentation. Relief swept across his face. Thank you, Arya. Miranda will be grateful. As he stood to leave, he hesitated. There is a retrospective screening next month for Midnight Shadows, he said. It would mean a lot to Miranda if you were there. Midnight Shadows had been WE Productions' breakout film more than 30 years ago. I considered his invitation carefully. A public appearance with the Weiss would stir up the past again. The media would circle, stories would resurface, but perhaps it was time, not for nostalgia, but for closure. I will check my schedule, I promised, that evening. While Daniel and I were preparing dinner and Lily was coloring quietly at the breakfast bar, I told him about the visit. Are you going to the screening? He asked as he chopped vegetables with casual ease. I am thinking about it, I admitted. It feels like the right time to acknowledge the past without letting it define me. Daniel nodded. And if Ryan is there? The question gave me pause. I had not really thought about seeing Ryan again. Not directly, but after a moment I answered. Then we will be two professionals who once knew each other, nothing more, nothing less. Daniel smiled. You wear growth well, Arya Chin. The screening was held at the Film Heritage Center, a beautifully restored theater in the city's arts district. Daniel and I arrived together, pausing briefly for photographs on the red carpet. Though the media had shown interest in my attendance, the spotlight remained thankfully on the film's anniversary rather than on old scandals. Inside the lobby, I saw Miranda surrounded by admirers and old colleagues. Though clearly frail, she carried herself with the same quiet strength and elegance I remembered. Robert stood nearby, attentive and steady. She spotted me before I saw her, her face lit up, and she motioned me over. Arya, you came, she said warmly. I stepped forward and hugged her gently, mindful of her condition. I would not have missed it, I told her. Midnight Shadows was the beginning of everything. My father took me to see this in a theater once, she said suddenly, catching me off guard. You were 11. You asked so many questions afterward that Robert joked we should hire you on the spot. We both laughed at the memory. Just then, a familiar voice spoke from behind me. Arya. I turned to see Ryan standing there. He looked older, humbler than I remembered. The polished executive with the sharp suit and calculating smile was gone. This Ryan had grey at his temples, lines around his eyes, and a quiet hesitancy I had never seen in him before. Ryan, I said with a nod, I did not know you would be here. Last-minute decision, he replied. For my mother. An awkward silence fell between us. 10 years of unspoken history hung in the air like a curtain neither of us could pull back. Sensing the tension, Daniel stepped forward and extended his hand. I am Daniel Chin. I do not think we have met properly. Ryan shook his hand with a polite nod. I have seen your work. The Jing biography was outstanding. His tone surprised me. The old Ryan would have said it with a layer of self-interest. This time, it felt genuine. As they spoke about Daniel's latest documentary, I quietly observed Ryan. Time had changed him, not just in appearance, but in spirit. The arrogance was gone. In its place was something quieter, more reflective. When the conversation slowed, Ryan turned to me. I heard about the Phoenix Initiative's 10th anniversary. He said, the showcase was impressive. You saw it? I asked, a little surprised. I show it to my students, he said, as an example of how to create real opportunities in the industry. Before I could reply, the lights dimmed, signaling the start of the screening. As we moved toward the theater, Ryan paused. Arya, could we talk, just for a moment? I looked at Daniel, who gave a small nod. All right, I said. After the film, the screening felt like a time capsule. The film's bold style had not faded with age. I found myself remembering why I had fallen in love with cinema. The power of imagery, the magic of storytelling, the thrill of creating something from nothing. Afterward, as the audience began drifting toward the reception, Ryan and I slipped away to a quiet corner on the theater's mezzanine. "Thank you," he began, "for coming tonight, for what you are doing for my mother, and for agreeing to speak with me." I nodded, waiting. "I have wanted to say this for years," he continued. "I was wrong, not just about us, but about everything. The way I ran the company, how I handled relationships, my idea of what mattered. I thought success was about control and ownership. You showed me it is really about building something that lasts." His words were nothing like what I had once imagined in those early days of hurt. Back then, I longed for an apology. Later, I decided I no longer needed one. But hearing him now, it felt like something coming full circle. "Thank you for saying that," I said simply. "It does mean something." "Even after all this time," Ryan gave a faint smile, "I watched you turn Phoenix Way into everything we productions could have been. It was humbling. It taught me more than I expected. And now you are teaching," I said. "Curious, ironically, it is the most fulfilled I have felt in my career," he admitted, "helping young filmmakers learn from my mistakes, guiding them to recognize real opportunities, showing them how to build lasting careers." I studied him, seeing clearly that we had both found our own ways forward. "Your students are lucky to have you," I said sincerely. As we prepared to rejoin the others, he asked one final question. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if that night had gone differently? If I had not made the worst decision of my life?" I thought about it for a moment. "I used to," I said, "but now I understand that everything, Phoenix Way, the initiative, even my own happiness, grew from that moment. So in a strange way, I am grateful." He looked surprised. "Grateful, not for the pain," I clarified, "but for the clarity it brought. Sometimes it takes the worst moments to show us what is truly possible." Later that evening, as Daniel and I peeked in on Lily asleep in her crib, I felt an unexpected peace. The conversation with Ryan had not reopened old wounds. Instead, it had confirmed just how far I had come, how far we all had come. "You know," Daniel said as we settled into bed, "there is something poetic about it. The betrayal that sparked an empire. The empire that became a movement. And now the movement is reshaping the industry he once tried to control. Life writes better plot twists than we do." I agreed. "Speaking of plot twists," Daniel said, reaching for a folder on his nightstand, "Hannah sent over the final draft of her script." I took the folder and smiled as I read the title page. Phoenix Rising, a true story of reinvention. 10 years had passed since Ryan publicly announced his mistress as his bride. 10 years since my father withdrew his funding and left Ryan bankrupt. The story had evolved far beyond revenge or redemption. It had become something deeper, more enduring, a story of purpose, transformation, and true success. The empire I had built in the aftermath of betrayal had turned into a legacy, one I could proudly pass down, not only to my daughter, but to every storyteller who needed a chance to rise from their own ashes and soar. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.